Hey, let's talk about 3D stuff. You know, 3D movies, real 3D games. Actually, wait. If you have a disorder where you can't see in 3D, or if you only have one good eye because you're a badass and get into a lot of bar fights, then you don't have to worry about this video. Everything's fine. You can go back to fighting. But for everybody else, a lot of people who don't know what's going on, so I'm gonna straighten it out on 3D. First, let's talk about movies. Now, I don't go to the theater that much because it's kind of pricey and I'm patient. So usually if I go, it's because somebody's roping me along or it's a celebration. So here's a list of all the 3D movies I've seen in the theater. Yeah, not that many, but let me tell you how the 3D effects were for each of these movies. They sucked. They all sucked. Oh sure, it was a little blurry, but I was expecting that. No, they were flat was the problem. Hey, check this out. I'm holding a piece of paper in front of me, but I'm standing behind it. Isn't that amazing? Huh? No, that's not amazing. That's bullshit. That's what modern 3D movies are. They're so flat, they're like these pieces of paper here, like a pop-up book. Actually, no. I've seen pop-up books do 3D better. 3D movies are all about immersion. Seeing clouds off in the distance, objects so close it looks like you can touch them, and that's just not what modern movies are doing. Now, maybe there's one or two out there that I missed that are doing it right, but these were major releases I saw. And I saw them at a total of 4 different theaters. So by my sampling, 3D movies suck. Now, that would be the end of the story, but I lied. There actually is one more 3D movie I've seen. It came from outer space. I got to watch the 3D version of this in a theater at a university. This came out in 1953 and used the old red and blue anaglyph glasses. So how is the 3D for that? It rocked my face off, that's how it was. In one scene, a guy's looking through a telescope and it was sticking way out of the screen as you see him swing it around. There was a rock slide where I honestly put my hands up because it came right in front of my face. And this scene with the ray gun, I swear made everyone in the theater jump. Was the movie corny as hell? Absolutely. But the 3D was awesome. I've heard some people say 3D doesn't add anything to a movie. Well, if it's a movie like Schindler's List, yeah, it's probably not gonna help things much. But if it's just some badly written action-adventure movie, good 3D can be enough to make you not walk out of the theater. Good 3D can. Too bad that's not what we're doing. I'll say it again. Modern 3D movies suck. They're too flat. Now some may say, well Ross, you don't understand. It's better to make sure 3D is toned down, it doesn't come too far out of the screen, so that a wider audience can appreciate. No, you're wrong. You're never gonna convince me because I know what good 3D looks like. I have seen the truth. I saw floating islands in Avatar. That should have been giving me vertigo. Instead it was, oh, I guess it's a little different. If you're going to do 3D, you need to commit all the way. All this half-assed 3D is worse than none at all. If people don't like 3D, it should be because it's too intense and they're worried they're gonna have a heart attack, not because it's slightly annoying. How much money do you think the industry has put into 3D movies with the cameras, projectors, 3D televisions? Billions? What a waste. And not because 3D movies are bad, but because we're doing it wrong. We were doing it better 60 fucking years ago than we are today. And that red-blue crap is annoying. So that's the story of 3D movies. They all suck now because the industry worth hundreds of billions is doing it half-assed. Congratulations. But wait, what about gaming? Well, games have been in 3D for a long time now, but I'm talking real stereoscopic, comes out of the screen 3D. Well, games have been experimenting with that since the 80s, but I first got into it in 2000 with the Elsa Revelator glasses. When these came out, they were unheard of. They had software to make every direct 3D game be 3D compatible. So how were they? They had issues. Some games like the original Resident Evil were bad choices because they weren't fully 3D. Sometimes crosshairs would get in the way. Sometimes the HUD looked great and would float above the screen. Other times it would be a problem. On games there was a lot of contrast, like a lamppost at night. You would get ghosting, which was really annoying. And you had to do a bunch of tweaks in every game to get the depth right and not make yourself go cross-eyed. But if you had a good game that worked properly, it was like stepping into another world. I am not kidding. Objects would look real enough to touch. I could see the sun back in the distance inside my screen. Dust might kick up in my face playing a racing game. I would notice all kinds of details that never would have occurred to me playing the game normally. It's difficult to explain, just that it makes the world you're looking at so different. 3D gaming, when it works, is the most impressive graphical improvement I've ever seen in a game. A game from 15 years ago with good 3D is going to look more impressive than a flat, photorealistic modern one. The difference is that huge. So what happened next? Elsa died, and Nvidia bought them up and re-released the drivers under their own name. And then something happened. Nvidia's drivers were never as good as the originals. You know how in some horror movies somebody will die, then his friends use black magic to bring him back to life, but he's never quite the same and something seems wrong? Well, that's what Nvidia's 3D drivers have been like since. Things never popped out as much, or they would get distorted the wrong ways. I'm not an expert. I can't explain what exactly they changed, just that it got worse. It was never as good as Elsa. I kinda lost faith after that, even though I tried IZ3D drivers, they kinda suck too. There have been some solutions since then, maybe they're better. The whole experience just made me kinda sad. But, as many of you know, since the 3D Dark Ages, the entire industry has been talking about the Oculus Rift, and now other virtual reality devices. And from what people are saying, it sounds like these are capturing some of that old magic. Now, I have not yet tried these. The last head-mounted display I tried was in 2007, and it sucked, but these sound different. My heart starts pounding thinking about it, since real 3D is that good. Now, for people who think VR sucks or it's just a hollow fad, unless you have actually seen good 3D, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. I'm serious. It's like trying to explain the difference between color and black and white. Now, I am worried virtual reality might make me sick, since I'm somebody who can get car sick. In fact, Resident Evil 5 had a field of vision so low it made me nauseous and I couldn't play it. But screw it, I'll take Dramamine for virtual reality if I have to. Also, if you're a competitive gamer, you don't want this. 3D is not going to help your game. If anything, it's gonna make it worse. But it will make your jaw drop. And a final warning from my experience, if you try to play a normal, flat 3D game after doing the real thing, it's kind of like eating tofu after having a steak. You may find that you suddenly hate your 3D games that you used to like. Now, will virtual reality catch on with the mainstream? Who knows? But it does stand to be bigger than it's ever been, and there's going to be more true believers like myself. So even if it remains a niche, it's going to be a niche with cult-like devotion. So that's 3D gaming. We stand at the precipice of what could be the most exciting thing ever to happen to games. But like all good things, it's hard to get working right and it might make you vomit. So when somebody says 3D sucks or 3D's awesome, now you know the right answer. Yes.